Okay, let's start. So this is kind of a field report using A.M. Franklin, I just stick with his name, in production with our own website for this conference, adaptTo conference. And I will speak a bit about what we did when re-implementing our website with Franklin, and also peek in some of the architecture details. You already got a brief overview in Markus' talk. So I will skip this part, you already know me, and come to the starting point. What was our AM website before? Well, it was implemented in AM 6.5, hosted on premises, and was quite old code. We developed it, I think, 8 years ago or so, and was 90% backend code, bit front-end code. Performance was okay on desktop, not so good on mobile, but okay, it was an old application. Looking at the adaptTo website, you might think it's a very trivial one because just a couple of content pages, but it has a set of non-trivial website features which made it a very good candidate to be migrated to Franklin because, of course, we wanted to stress the platform a bit and see what is possible beyond just publishing some content pages. So first, we have some kind of multi-tenancy, having yearly editions back to the very first edition in 2011, and keep all the old websites as an archive for the old talks, for example. We have quite a complex automatic schedule generation. For example, in the past, we had occasions where we had multiple tracks in parallel. So it's all generated automatically with calculating the times and so on. And with a speaker database, currently or previously hosted in content fragments, used across all years with the speaker profiles, with some special features of speaker change companies over the years, and all connecting together. We have a talk archive where you can look back to all talks and filter them and find previous talks, and some lightweight integrations with YouTube Player, Google Maps, Ticket Shop, HubSpot for newsletter. And a bit more complex beast is a user-centric consent management for legal compliance. Our goal was to re-implement all the stuff with Franklin without losing any functionality, and also keeping the content and layout as it is. We do not want to do redesign at this point, but really migrate one-to-one, but re-implementing it with modern code, of course, and the new platform. Yeah, and the first step, of course, was thinking about data migration, because we had a huge amount of data already in place, which we wanted to migrate, and this is something you should do first in your project, thinking about the content architecture. So how should the destination content structure look like? And the good thing is, very early in the development process, we implemented a full migration from our old AM-hosted website to this document-based storage, in our case, in Google Drive. And this was very helpful during development because for each component and block we developed, we had the content already in place in different variations, in different years, and could quickly test it if it's doing the right thing. So the target of the migration was have all the content migrated to plain documents with its basic formatting, as we've just seen in Markus' talk. And the first thing we had to do is thinking about the folder file structure, because we've already seen when rethinking the website concerning performance, concerning SEO, we should restructure the URLs a bit compared to the old AM application. And this we also wanted to do in the migration process as well. So on the right side, you see a short view of the structure of 1 year, where I will have a deeper look later on this. And there's a very cool tool, still called Franklin Importer, which you have in place automatically. So if you clone your project from this boilerplate project, you can just start it with HLX import, and then you have this tool. There's a couple of features, but its main goal is to directly import content from any live website. So it's not connecting to some CMS or AM backend-wise, but it's really scraping the content of live websites and imports this. And of course, there are a lot of tools like this, but this works remarkably well. And I think Adobe used it really a lot in all the dozens or hundreds of pilot projects they're using it. You can customize it very easily. So there you can hook in JavaScript to tailor the import process. For example, stripping away header and footer and repeated elements which should not be in the document, or reshuffling the DOM a bit to make it easier to import. And here I have an example. The homepage is a small picture, and the big picture is the stripped down version with basic formatting, only containing the header image and the text of the homepage, but including formatting, keeping links, of course, so it can be rendered correctly later. So it's a really great tool, helps greatly. But for us, the approach to scraping the live website one-to-one was not ideal, because we had a lot of structured information in our AM applications, the content fragments, a lot of talk metadata, and so on, the speaker database, which was, of course, not one-to-one represented in the live website, but it was rendered out with the various pieces and links and redundancy and so on as the user should visit it. And we do not want to import all this redundancy. We wanted to import really the structured data. And we also wanted to restructure the URL content a bit. The good thing is that in this case, of course, we had full control of our old AM app, so we were able to tweak this a bit to provide a special layer for importing it. So although the tool works great for live website, for us it works even greater for a custom view. And for this, we could use Sling. Hooray. So in our old website, of course, it was all with HTML templates and so on. We provided a special view by just applying a selector, in this case with helix selector. For example, for the homepage, we added here a selector en.helix HTML, where we just copied our existing HTML script, stripped it out a bit, and added, for example, such metadata blocks, which are used by Franklin to provide HTML metadata, or here with custom metadata for the talks, or we provided an HTML view, a simple one for the content fragments. And with this and the Franklin importer, we were able to have a full migration of all our content, including all structured information which was not directly visible in the live website. We also implemented a customized sitemap because the importer relies on the sitemap to fetch all pages and added virtual pages in there. Because, for example, the navigation, there never was a dedicated view for navigation or application. We added just a special selector returning a navigation document, because in Franklin you store the navigation in a separate document, which then could be imported individually. The same, for example, for fragments. In the old applications, fragments were just components inherited down in the page hierarchy. So we added a special view to import these fragments in separate documents. And with this, we had a fully working import very early in the project with all the details and exactly the structure we wanted in our documents after the migration process. Additionally, one of the most complex features is the scheduling, because when we are preparing the conference, we have a long process of shuffling around the talks and thinking about how we should structure the schedule to get the best combination and so on. And we implemented a special edit mode in the page editor in AM before, where we could add all the things with edit dialogues and change the talk durations and drag and drop stuff around, and even have, you see at the bottom, support for parallel tracks or partial parallel tracks. And of course, with document-based authoring, we do not have the possibility to add such special editor support because, yeah, we just cannot customize. Of course, we could probably create a plugin for Google Drive or so, but it was too complex. So the idea was, or the question was, how to migrate this, that it's still very easy to do all the schedule planning and provide the scheduled data what to do. We only have documents, so let's use documents, but not a Google document, but an Excel or Google Sheet. So this looks trivial, but it's a very powerful concept. Of course, we used a lot of formulas. For example, all these times, starting end times, are just calculated with formulas based on the talk duration, which is maintained separately. And here we have a mixture of just organizational items like opening words or the breaks, which are entered directly. And we're using here a smart chips feature from Google Documents, which just are links to other documents in the same space. And they can be just typed in with auto-completion. It's very handy to fill in. And we have support for multiple tracks with separate lines, and you see track numbers in the middle there. And this was a very easy solution to just transform the schedule data to a sheet, and it's similar easy to use as the old one, but just using standard standard editing capabilities, which maybe the business users are now even better than using our custom and with love hand-built edit mode, and probably even use lesser clicks. And with Franklin, this Excel sheet is then transformed to JSON. Simply line by line, each line gets transformed to a JSON object with the data in it. And this was very easy to consume. The dates look a bit strange. They are just typical numerical representation of dates. You can just calculate them back to a date object. And this was very easy to consume in the JavaScript application, the client side, to actually build the schedule. Yeah, and with this, we have a document structure. I can show you quickly how it looks like. So going to the root, so we have here all years, neatly one beside another, and we have the speakers database, just a big collection of pages for each speaker. And let's look into the current year. I will not change anything because this is our production here. But look, for example, at the venue page here. This is a simple combination of just content and the picture and one block, which is just the embed block for Google Maps containing the embed URL. And if I now have here the AM sidekick hit on preview, then I get a preview of this page with full, and this it takes 1-2 seconds to copy this thing to this previous storage, if I've seen in the content bus. Apropos content bus, do you still know Communique 3.5? There was also a content bus, but it's completely different. Yeah, and there you see just the rendered page with the Google Map and the content, very easy. Or another simple example, for example, let's go to a gallery here in the, in the impressions, where it is. It's called here gallery. It's super simple, so you do not have a dedicated asset management as you know it from AM. Managing images in Franklin mainly on document-based authoring mainly means just drops them into your document. So this gallery is just a block with all the images in there. We could even have removed the block and rely on auto-blocking, but because we sometimes combine gallery with other content, we have created a block for it. And it's super simple. And sounds crazy simple, so maybe it's too simple, it cannot work. But remember, there's still a lot of magic happening with image optimization, and you can get different resolutions, so you still have a lot of possibilities to make this really performant and manage your images rightly, but it's super simple, of course, for the editors to use. Okay, let's come back. Let's have some looks at some architecture and implementation details. Only a brief look into it. This is a simplified architecture view for some details specific relevant for our adaptTo project. So the documents are here. I'm only showing Google Drive. Of course, this also works with SharePoint and Word documents and so on. So the Google Drive holds our Google documents, holds our sheets, a couple of sheets, and the images normally not directly stored in the folders, but directly dropped into the Google documents. And then there's this Content Hub. The Google documents get transformed internally to Markdown, I think, and then on the Edge side back to HTML. So when you request the document, you get a very bare-bone view with super pure HTML automatically generated from each document. But you do not have any influence how the markup is generated. It's very clean, it's very super, but you cannot customize it in any way as you are accustomed to when you're, for example, writing your site-lead template. Then Google Sheets are just, or Excel files are just transformed to JSON, if you've seen for the schedule, and can directly consume SS, like this. And for images, there's a lot of magic possible in the Edge. So by default, you get your original image, but in a WebP optimized version, but you also can apply parameters to get certain resolutions which you require to even save more bandwidth. And you have, of course, your GitHub code repository, which is mirrored more or less one-to-one into the CDN with all your static resources, JavaScript, CSS files stored in there. And usually you bring your own CDN, as it's currently, you have a selection of a couple of which are well supported, and we are using Cloudflare for adaptTo. Yeah, yet very important view. How is the actual page building happening on the client? In Sling and AM, you know, all this is usually working on the server side. If you're using the traditional full stack approach, you render together your components with navigation and so on, and everything is built on the server side, and then the complete HTML is pushed to the client. It's different with Franklin. And it's also different from AIM headless, as we have seen yesterday, where the transport is JSON. Here, if you request a document stored in the Google Drive, for example, the homepage document, you get only, I can show you it here. So what you get is really only this. It's the content of the homepage. No tips, thanks. It's the content of the homepage with the teaser and so on, but nothing else. No header, no footer, no fragments, which we are using for teasers and so on. It's really only the content of the homepage. Where does the other stuff come from? Well, we have nothing in the document, but we have JavaScript. So what we are doing is we are doing a lot of additional requests via JavaScript. So we are fetching the footer from a separate document. We are fetching the header with navigation from a separate document. We are fetching a couple, 2 in our case, fragments via JavaScript, and probably additional Excel sheets of JSON, and of course, a lot of JavaScript and CSS files. All this are separate requests fired via JavaScript from the browser. If you've shown to me this architecture diagram a couple of years ago, I would say, are you crazy? This is completely imperformant. How this should be fast? Please bundle this together somewhere in the back end using Sling Dynamic Include, using edge delivery, edge handling in the in CDN or whatever, but please reduce those requests. But thinking with modern architecture, first, every content you push from your Google Drive is already in the edge available. So it's stored in the blob and it's available in CDN. So each request is super fast. And additionally, you have modern browser, and especially you have HTTP3 in all modern browsers. So it's completely irrelevant. If you have 1 or 10 requests, only the size matters. Everything else is so optimized with HTTP3 that it's just in one stable connection, streamed one after another, so it's normally really not a problem. So although this looks completely imperformant, it is very performant. And Google PageSpeed and visual clicking to the site shows us that it works very well. And it's also very great for cache invalidation. Think of the talk yesterday about dispatcher caching and TTL and cache dependency and so on. In traditional AM, you have the problem that if you cache a page, it does not only contain the content of the page, it contains a lot of dependencies, navigation stuff, teasers, page headlines from other pages included. And if you change any other page, yeah, you have to flush your whole site or apply TTL to all pages. So you get all these dependencies flushed. And here, the only thing which is in cache for each document is really only the content of the document and the related images probably. And only if this document changes, you have only to flush this document. And there's also very good, of course, e-tag handling in place automatically. You don't have to do anything for it. And so it's super efficient also if you change content on a regular basis to just always show the most recent content. So we have to rethink a bit, but it's really working very well with what we have nowadays browser support. Yeah, looking at the block example with a little bit of code. So in the top right side, you see a block how it's looking in our Google document. Very simple, it's a block called teaser bar and has a headline, image, text, and the link. And in the left top, you see the markup generated automatically by Franklin. Very clean, very simple. You have the block name automatic as class attached to the surrounding div, and then just have a headline and paragraph and image, paragraph of text, paragraph with a link. For a lot of simple blocks, you probably do not need any JavaScript code at all to have it working. You only apply CSS and you are ready. In this case, we decided to add a little piece of JavaScript. This is a full JavaScript code you see for this block because you see all this data is embedded in paragraphs, image, link, and so on, because this is a default representation of a new line, of a separate line in the Google document. And we do not want it to write CSS like paragraph 1 is always the image, paragraph 2 is the text, because if editors accidentally add an additional new line, then this will all break. So we just peek into each of the paragraphs we see here and add a CSS class on the client side. So the CSS can really write, okay, the image will be formatted like this, and the link like this, and text like this, and so on. And this is a common concept, because because you have no influence on the actual markup generated, you are no longer possible as you did it with HTML, for example. In HTML, you build the perfect HTML to style it and render it to the client. Here you get super clean HTML, but without any special classes attached to it, which are specific to your project, specific to your design. But using JavaScript, you can apply it, and it's a very small piece of code which runs very fast, and then you still can write efficient and good-looking and good manageable CSS. Okay, looks simple. You can do a lot of stuff with this like normal content. But yeah, how to do more complex use cases? For example, if you have a talk picture rendered, a talk page rendered, how to fetch the speaker info with a picture of the speaker and name and company and so on. This information is not contained in the talk document. It only contains the reference to the speaker, the name of the speaker. Or how to render a schedule with all the talk details, which are partially in the talk document. Or how to list all previous years' automatic navigation without having to maintain this manually. Or how to build our speaker gallery, which automatically lists all speakers which happen to be involved in any talk this year from our big speaker database. This information is all over the place, or our talk archive, which can be filtered by anything. Remember, the only code you can build is on the client side. You have no page manager, no Sling API, no query builder available. With this, it will all be easy to build on the back end, but you're on the client side. Yeah, there's a very cool feature already mentioned by Markus called query index. How is this working? First, you create a new sheet called query index in the root of your document storage. Then you add a couple of columns to it, which signify which information do you want to collect from all documents in your site. For example, path is just a path, which will result in the URL. Title is, for example, from HTML, meta title. Image is the first image in the document, or customer, which you configure. Then we have a couple of custom attributes, for example, affiliation and Twitter link is from our speaker database, or from our talk documents, speakers and text. And whenever we publish a document to live in our documents, a talk, a speaker document, then this table automatically gets filled. So there's a bot, Helix bot, which has write permission to our Google Drive and automatically writes back each time a page gets published into this Excel file. So in our case, this currently has probably about 700 entries or so. It gets a bit bigger. You have the possibility to define custom indexes and split this up. For example, one per country or one only for your press releases or whatever. But in our case, it was fine to just have this big list and have working with the whole list because due to the talk archive and so on, we needed most of it anyways in every year. And again, this list is automatically filled and automatically serialized to JSON with caching in CDN, so it's very performant to get this list. And with this feature, it's super easy for all these use cases to implement them. If you want to know more details, you can come to me in the playground session, but it really works great. With all this, it works. So you have to rethink use cases a bit, how to implement stuff with AM Franklin. Because first, it seems to be super limited, but with certain very good solutions that are in place, it's very powerful and still super fast and does not require that much code. Speaking of spreadsheet features, there's more than just shown and we currently use here. For example, if you have a very big spreadsheet, you can page it and, for example, get only the first one of the next 100 entries and so on and parse them. Or if you make sure that your spreadsheet is always sorted with the by date, for example, descending by date, you can just get the 10 latest press releases or blog entries and show them quickly with just a very short JSON request. And this is also cached in CN, of course. Or if you have multiple cheats, you can, in one document, you can query, access them individually via query parameters. Or, which is very, very powerful, you can use formulas to process data. Think of pivot tables. You have probably raw data in your data and a pivot table, and then request the data from the pivot table to render your website. And the possibilities are really unlimited, all using Excel or Google Sheets. And of course, it sounds a bit like trickery. Okay, in AM, we invested so much money in this edit stuff and so on, visual edit mode, but at least people know how to edit Excel files and are very accustomed to it. So it's probably maybe easier and better for them than having the best and most complex built individual edit mode, which is still only can feature the use case where you built it for, whereas in Excel, it's very easy to add new use cases. And there's a special thing, a small form service part of Franklin. So if you have a web form, you can post it to a special URL in Franklin, and then this data gets automatically stored line by line in an Excel sheet. So you even have a very simple form capability. Yeah. Speaking of web performance, I will not go deeper into this. You've already seen a lot from Marcus, like this separation in eager and delayed and so on, the stages. So for web performance, of course, size still matters. Size is very important to keep your size down. The total bytes which you download when the page is loaded, which consists, of course, of the code, of your content, of your images, and so this really has to be within certain limits to make sure it can be loaded very fast. If you start a new project using this boilerplate Marcus has referenced, then you're starting with a very, very low print. So I think the JavaScript and CSS that comes with it is below 10 kilobytes. So you start a very, very low profile. And you have automatically this optimized web image handling in place. So from this point of view, you're also ready to go with doing anything from your side. The code yourself are writing is usually also very lean. So you're writing code, of course, in JavaScript on the client side, but you do not need that much code to really build your stuff. And, already mentioned by Marcus, the recommendation is, and it really works, this is your package JSON. This is your dependency JSON. It has just no runtime dependencies. Of course, you can add, but you should think double and thrice if you really, really need it. Because every library you add is adding more kilobytes to your download. And with the modern CSS and modern JavaScript, so much stuff is already in the language built in. So things where you needed jQuery 10 years ago, you do not need it anymore. And there's a lot of other stuff as well. It's very powerful. So yeah, think about it. And for adaptTo, we really kept this. We have no runtime dependency at all. Maybe we will introduce later some our own reusable libraries, but this and also be probably very small if you want to share code across different projects. I have some appendix slides I will show today about how we optimize web font loading and this nasty user-centric CMP. If you want to know more, you can come to me in the playground session. Yeah, and with this, mission accomplished. We reached the 100 score on all our pages, including gallery and stuff, which was a bit more complex before. So very nice. Let's come to a conclusion. Yeah, first, the developer experience. It's great. I say this as Java guy. So, so if you develop locally, you're just using vanilla JS, CSS mostly, no frameworks. Of course, you can have a lot of dev dependencies to make your life easier, but no runtime dependencies recommended. You can use them if you want them. You have live reload, of course, locally, automatically, when you use this Franklin development server locally. And what's also very nice, you are testing automatically with live content, because you just connect your to the Google Drive where we migrated, for example, the content, and you develop automatically against this live content. The PR process is really great. So Marcus said it already, but I really want to show it to you. Once you push a branch into GitHub, it automatically gets a preview URL. So all the stuff you've seen yesterday for AM and RDEs and CI automation and spin up a dedicated preview instance to get preview of your PR, it's there instantly, automatically, just by pushing a branch, the branch. Immediately you can call the URL and you see what you have done live and can experiment and can send it to a QA guy or to design people and so on to get a preview. And if they say yes, then you click merge and it's live. It's great, instant. And also setting up a new project, you clone the boilerplate, hit npm install, HLX up, and you're ready to go. It's really great. Yeah, looking back, what's great? Coding is fun, refreshing. It's really nice. And also for me, learning all this modern JavaScript and CSS stuff, I did not use it that much in the last years. So I learned a lot new. It's really great. Super quick development cycle, instant preview and PRs. It's not using a niche technology. Of course, I love OSUI and Sling, but so few people know it. It's really difficult to get expert level in this area. Here, you need JavaScript, and it's easy to learn. Focus on simplicity in all the framework and all the stuff Adobe is providing here. It's great. Spell check in documents. Oh, in AM, it was so difficult to get a good spell check in your rich text and so on. And here, it's just in Word or in Google, and Importer is great. Some limitations. Of course, the simplicity comes with limitations. You cannot do everything, like MSM rollout is not built in and stuff like this. But still, for adaptTo website, we did not really hit the limits of it. And we think a lot is possible. A lot of more complex site can be built with it efficiently as well. You have no control of the markup. It's super clean markup, good markup, but you cannot add custom stuff like CSS classes I've already shown you. The editors, of course, you cannot really lock them down in template policies, edit dialogues to really make sure they only enter what is allowed. So it's more about loose convention, but still, they cannot just use the pink font and it's not live, because the pink font they do in Word, they can apply it, but it's never serialized to markup. So they are still not possible to completely break the design which you envision. Important point, you do not have a build chain. So this instant preview, instant branch comes as a small downside. If you want, for example, to apply a post-processing for TypeScript or for post-CSS to apply to your JavaScript and source files, it's currently not easy possible, because the only code which is really on the live apps available is the code which is actually committed to the Git repository. So if you want to do some post-processing on your code before putting it to live, it has to be committed to the repository, which is very ugly. Yeah, so hopefully there will be probably a solution for this later. But for now, we only used vanilla JavaScript and CSS because of this. We would love to have post-CSS, although CSS is maturing as well. Yeah, but so it is. And a small nitpick, this query index is very cool. Query index only contains stuff from the live and not from preview. This is a problem for us, because for us it's not possible, for example, to preview our agenda, which is built, and a lot of other stuff with query index, before putting it live. And this is just not nice. It would be nice if a separate query index would be created for preview. So yeah, that's all from me. That's my list of references for the download. And do you have questions?
Stefan, looking back, would you apply like Edge again for adaptTo site, or would you prefer or be happier with like just do a new classic AEM implementation?
No, for the use case like this, it's really a great fit. So although, of course, I have spent 15, 20 of my lives into all this technology and Sling and OCI, and still love it and I still maintain it, of course, but for a project like this and even bigger project, I think it's really, I like it. It's a good approach, yeah.
The audience would also like to know, how many man days did you use to do the migration?
Yeah, of course I had the benefit and also the duty. I've implemented it all myself, so it didn't really count, but it was, yeah, of course I learned a lot of stuff personally, just with JavaScript and CSS, what is possible nowadays, and web performance and so on. But I think if condensed in a piece, it would be a few weeks. If I had this learning stage in technology, it is not to be delivered. So it's quite fast to do it, to get good results. And then you have to think a bit more about stuff like scheduling, about stuff like web performance. And if you're not perfect in this, then this will take time to really quench out the last percentages of the web performance.
Then we have several questions. We need the help of Adobe about the licensing. So people seem to be very interested in that question. There's also like a lot like building now the bridge to headless as a big topic as well. For example, how would you provide the content also for consumption in SPA?
Yeah, this is an important thing. I thought a bit about it, but not actually working in it. But I think if we rethink SPAs more nowadays, it should be possible to also provide this super clean markup as base for SPAs, plus probably JSON from Sheets and so on. So I would love to maybe in the future make a POC or so with an SPA with Franklin. I think currently it's not existing, or I'm not sure if Adobe did anything in this direction. But I think there are ways, but there as well you have to rethink things a bit and leave a bit the trodden path for SPAs today. But I'm sure it's possible to do it in a new and good way.
Masud would like to know, do you reuse images across pages, or do you have the multiple copies of it? And also, how large is your storage after migrating from classic AEM to Alex, frankly?
Yeah, our complete storage is, I think, about 2 gigabytes or so, mostly because of all the images, gallery images and presentations of the last 12 years. The first question was?
About the reuse of images.
Yeah, reuse, yeah. So technically, you just drop the image in multiple documents to reuse it. I think there's some deep duplication in it. I'm not quite completely sure. So it's still only one time in the cache. But technically, the authors just put the same image in multiple places. Yeah. Or you can, of course, use fragments. If you really want to reuse the image, probably with like a teaser, you can just create a fragment and reference it in multiple places.
Thank you, Stefan.
OK, thanks.